Let's look at the badges of trade. These are also known as the characteristics to explain that there is trade, or the things or the characteristics that distinguishes someone who is in trade from someone who is not in trade. That's what we call the badges of trade. The first one is the way in which the assets were acquired. Assets can be constructed. Assets, we are talking about things like buildings. Yeah. So assets can be constructed, they can be developed, they can be bought. Yeah. So someone who is in trade or someone who is doing business is likely to construct or develop their own assets. Yeah, those sometimes buy. But someone who is not in trade, they're likely to just buy the assets. Then the nature of the assets. Someone who is in trade is likely to have both fixed assets and then current assets. Current assets like stock, and then fixed assets like machinery, buildings, and all that. And then the modification of the asset prior to sale or use. Someone who is in trade is likely to modify or renovate the asset before using it for business purposes or selling it. Yeah, then another one is the interval between the purchase and the sale of the asset. For example, the sale of fixed assets. If the fixed assets for the business, there is a very big interval, like they take a very long period to sell them. Yeah, so there is a very big difference or time difference between the purchase and the sale of an asset. Yeah, but in case the current assets, there is a small interval because they buy them for sale, like stock. Then the way in which sale is effected. Someone who is in trade, sales are supposed to be regular, like they sell on a regular basis. It may not be daily, but often. Then the number of transactions. Someone who is in trade is likely not to have only one transaction. Yeah, they're likely to have very many transactions because they carry on business almost every day. Then there is also existing of trading interest in the same field. And lastly, the method of financing the transaction. Yeah, there are very many methods of financing. There is equity and then debt. They are the main ones. Yeah, so someone who is in trade is likely to have both equity and then debt.